Hey everybody, this is me, Daniel Hutchins, and today we're going to be talking about an articles from our friends Den of Geek. So, I know it's been a while since we've talked about some stuff from the Den of Geek, but that is why we are visiting some articles again from Den of Geek. So today from Den of Geek, we're talking about the new Marvel video game, Midnight Suns. So why Marvel's Midnight Suns gameplay has fans worried? Now this was hot off the truck of yesterday. Marvel's Midnight Suns is already upsetting the fans who were worried about the implications of this game's card-based combat system. Okay, so Marvel Midnight Suns arguably stole the show during last week's XCom opening night ceremony. But the real reveal of the upcoming strategy title's gameplay has already caused a bit of a divide in which has already recently seemed to be a pretty enthusiastic fan base. Now there's the gameplay walkthrough here on denofgeek.com, and you can watch it on YouTube, but if you're watching the gameplay reveal for the first time, you may be wondering in your head what the big deal was. After all, most people assume that the Midnight Suns was going to be a strategy game set in the Marvel Universe, and that's pretty much what it ought to be. But however, much of the controversy surrounding Midnight Suns gameplay at the moment is based on a brief line in that preview regarding the game's use of card systems. It might not sound like a lot, but the one piece of information has already triggered a heated discussion regarding the game's potentials. Now, its potential association with some especially unpopular idea, what all this means is considerable expectations fans have for this project. How does Marvel's Midnight Suns card gameplay work? Now, this video offers a fairly comprehensive look at Midnight Suns gameplay, but it does gloss over some specifics from the upcoming title card base element. Whether the developers are trying to hide something about the aspects of the title, it really has the heart of this particular controversy from the moment. However, the team at Firaxis has shared additional details about Midnight Suns' card-based combat system that to help explain how the whole thing will work. Here's what Jake Solomon, creative director, had said about the game's card-based combat mechanics from the recent press release. Now, in Marvel Midnight Suns, you aren't learning how to fight or gradually grow stronger, but you and your fellow heroes are already the legends. You must combine everything in your arsenal to stop Lilith. Cards provide the new, refreshing way to approach the tactics, allowing you and us to really go all out in designing a combat system that makes every hero feel, look, and play differently. But elsewhere, IGN has expanded upon the specifics that Midnight Suns combat systems by clarifying it's not a CGC game and the style of titles like Hearthstone and Shadowverse, but instead the Midnight Suns is closer to the deck-building roguelike game, like the Slay the Spire, or even the card-based RPG like Baden Kato's Origins. Of course, some of the gameplay specifics have not been revealed, but it basically sounds like you're dealt random hand ability cards to start combat. You acquire new cards and build your own deck for gameplay, story progression, but it seems like part of the game strategy will be based on your ability to make the most of your cards you're ultimately dealt. On top of this, Midnight Suns allows you to weaponize parts of the environment and use special team moves that will maximize your squad damage potential. Again, it's not entirely clear how randomized will ultimately impact the combat experience, but it does seem like the idea is to add a little variety to every encounter by requiring you to manage different ability environmental opportunity. It's also not entirely clear how movement in this game will work, though it does sound like it'll be relatively limited to not nearly as important as the Firaxis XCom games. Basically, in a nutshell, Midnight Suns appears to be the squad-based strategy game where your combat action are determined by card-like ability that you're dealt from the beginning of your combat. Those combat sequences will also seemingly emphasize managing your abilities over positioning and movement, but the game's environmental damage mechanic and team building feature may also add a little bit of depth to your experience. So what's the problem with this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Marvel's Midnight Suns has to overcome the CGC genre's bad reputation. So the digital CGCs have become more and more popular over the years, or at least they've become more successful. They've also acquired the negative reputation for perfectly representing some of the sad, shadier elements from the modern game industry. Specifically, some gamers have been trained to see cards from the video game and think of two potentially major mechanical turnoffs: randomness and pay-to-win features. There's the degree to which randomness is the unavoidable part of any card-based game. After all, the entire CGC genre is based on playing the hand you dealt. However, most fans are alright with this RNG element of the genre, and there's something satisfying about building the best deck possible, trying to outthink your opponent with the helps of cards in your hands. Now, the problem is that some card games take randomness too far. The prime example of this problem has to be Hearthstone. The CGC has piled random mechanics on top of random mechanics in recent years, to the point where a victory can feel like the roll of a dice rather than a result of being the one who's played the best hand when they dealt. While Hearthstone has gone better about the level of randomness in recent expansion, it's clear that CGC developers are resisting this urge to tap into that sometimes addictive gambling quality that comes with such wild randomness. That brings us to the dreaded topic of pay-to-win mechanics with CGC loot boxes. Many CGC titles require you to build your own deck of cards, and most CGC titles require you to buy packs of cards in order to expand your collection. Now, this problem is that you often don't know which individual cards you're getting from the pack. That means your best strategy is to buy as many packs as possible in order to help ensure that you eventually find specific cards you're looking for. Unfortunate elements of the CGC genre, made by much worse by the rise of loot boxes. In many ways, the card packs perfectly represent how frustrating loot boxes are. But while you can win these games without spending a small fortune, it's hard to deny that spending money makes things easier. Will Marvel's Midnight Suns have loot boxes and card packs? Now, thankfully, to this definitive answer, the question is no. In fact, Midnight Suns' team was quick to address this particular concern via the Twitter. They said, "Hey folks, regarding our battle card system, there are no loot box Marvel Midnight Sun. Related microtransactions to get more cards, i.e. gamma coils, will purely cosmetic character skins for purchase, do not affect game balance in any way." Now, this person, Joseph Ed Wrights, had said love deck builders couldn't be more excited. Only worry was no microtransactions for card packs or costumes, right? This was posted a few days ago. But that brings us back to this idea that Midnight Suns is close to the deck building roguelike RPG and CGC game. While there's always a bit of wiggle room here and there when you're talking about microtransaction, it at least sounds like you shouldn't expect to have to buy a bunch of packs just to be able to play the game. While it's obviously a good thing, the tweet doesn't exactly address all the concerns fans want about Midnight Suns. Marvel Midnight Suns already reminds some fans of mobile title. Mobile games are undeniably popular, and mobile games are becoming much more complex and interesting. It's hard to fault anyone who thinks the microtransactions, shady mechanics, and general simplified gameplay when they think of mobile games. A simplified gameplay concern that many are applying to Midnight Suns at the moment, between Midnight Suns, used the still somewhat vague card system. The title seemingly limited free roam mobility mechanics, at least in combat scenario. Some fans are already worried that Midnight Suns is being developed to eventually become the mobile game, or at very least, represent the more mainstream mechanics that typically make mobile games more accessible to a wider audience. But for what it's worth, no mobile version of Midnight Suns has been confirmed from this time. The game will instead launch for PC, Nintendo Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S. While there may be proof to be a gross oversimplification of what's actually happening, it's hard to deny what we've seen of Midnight Suns gameplay. So far, does it feel a bit closer to you might see in a mobile game than you would typically expect from a modern strategy title made for your PC or console. But that doesn't mean the Midnight Sun would be strategically engaging. It also doesn't mean that it will be bad. It just means that the first impression many people had about it was the gameplay seems to be based on what kinds of games the project currently resembles, as well of the games it doesn't resemble. Ultimately, some fans are disappointed that Marvel's Midnight Suns isn't XCom. Now, one of the things that Firaxis did after Midnight Suns reveal was very clear that it will not be an XCOM strategy game. However, reactions to Midnight Suns gameplay reveals they made it clear that not everyone got this message. Actually, it's a little unfair. It seems that some people do understand Midnight Suns isn't supposed to be XCOM, but they're just not happy about it. There are quite a few people out there who seemingly want to play XCOM, set in Marvel Universe. I sympathize with that desire though, but those certainly sound like two great flavors. It's easy to imagine how such a game probably could have ended with being a lot of fun. Ultimately, the burden of introducing someone even a bit different, though maybe Midnight Suns will leave us all wishing it had been an XCOM game. But certainly, interesting to see Midnight Suns team has spent so much time explaining the game as it isn't, as opposed to really talking about what the game it is. Some of the blame there lies with quality of initial reveal videos themselves, which doesn't do the best job of properly explaining how the game they actually play. But this might be a bigger sign of how brutal reactions be at the times of having a gut reactions to nearly everything is becoming more of expectation. In this particular instance, it doesn't help that the game instantly reminds people of gameplay monetization sins of others. Midnight Suns could be great, could be terrible, or could fall on dreaded middle ground that's hard to make memes about, or therefore useless in a good chunk of the internet, much as we saw in case in Saints Row, though most first impressions are indeed worth a lot when they already rarely have, and there's a degree to which Midnight Suns already faces the uphill battle on its way to the March 2022 release date. Okay, so there you go, guys. That is all your crazy information regarding with the new Marvel game Midnight Suns. If you guys like this content, please hit that thumbs up button. If you don't like this content, I understand this stuff ain't for everybody, but for those who were interested in Marvel's Midnight Suns, please leave a comment below and have a wonderful day. Bye.